Hello and welcome to the 100 Real Women podcast. I'm your host, Teresa Kittridge, founder and CEO of 100 Real Women. We are a nonprofit, we're a nonpartisan organization dedicated to creating connections and inspiring leadership. We see a future where more women are in positions of leadership, and we are set out to interview 100 amazing women doing important work. So I am excited today to introduce you to our guest. Delaine Anderson has joined us today, and Delaine is a former graduate student with 100 Real Women, and I'm just feel so fortunate to have had Delaine with us, and she is currently a medical student and heading into her residency. So I want everybody to welcome Delaine to the podcast today. So
Well,
welcome.
thank you, Teresa. It's such a gift to be able to come back to something because I started working with you in 2021.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Quite a few years since we've been able to connect and chat, and gosh, how life has changed.
It has, and as I always say with 100 Real Women, our students are our secret sauce, and Delaney definitely is our secret sauce, and we'll talk more about this. But we're believers at 100 Real Women in research and finding out how we can add value. And Delaney really was the architect and the facilitator and the leader and the pull together all of our findings person that really got 100 Real Women up and going. And today our programs are emanating from that research. So Delaney's wonderful, and we're excited to be able to share her with you. And so Delaney, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. So if I start at the very beginning, I was born at 5:24 a.m. on May 1st. I will be turning 28 this year. I am the youngest of four. I have three older brothers, so I have that fun dynamic of being the baby of the family, but also the eldest daughter. So if you know, you know. I was born and raised in Southern California, which is the opposite of rural. Um, I grew up in an area where you drove everywhere. There were sidewalks everywhere. And if you needed to get any really specialty food, specialty care, it was reachable. You might have sat in traffic for 2 hours, but you would be able to get there, no problem. And I ended up leaving California for college. I went to the University of Alabama, Roll Tide, which was such a positive culture shock for me. It was, I think, one of the greatest things I did in my life to leave home. And I will always encourage young people to do that because you really get to figure out yourself and who you want to be separate from those expectations of family, society, or any of that good stuff. While in Alabama, I lived in Tuscaloosa and I did some volunteer work in the county next to me where they had a lot of different and unique health problems that I had never really had to sit and think about because of where I grew up in such an urban and suburban area. And I myself developed some issues with vertigo. And when I was supposed to see a specialist, the closest one was over 2 hours away. And it really hit me in the face of I was a young person who happened to have a car, who had flexible work arrangements and classes where I could take the time to go drive and do that. And so many people in this world do not. I had gone to college to become a nurse and was not feeling nurtured in that space. And so had transitioned into dietetics and exercise science because I knew I had a strong interest in health, but I didn't quite know exactly what I was going to be. And I remember very vividly making a grilled cheese in my freshman dorm and having a memory and thinking, I used to think I wanted to be a doctor when I was little. When did I lose that dream? And so I switched my path and said, well, I'm going to try my best. I'm going to let other people tell me no and not say no to myself initially. So I spent a lot of time with some wonderful rural physicians down in Tuscumbia and Dothan, Alabama, and was really able to realize how important rural health was to me and to where I wanted to go in my career. I also knew I was annoying and liked talking about big picture things about community health, about not just what is the care we do inside the exam room, but what is your resources, what does your community look like when you leave? Because that's where most of life happens and health choices happen. And with the advice of some really good mentors, I pursued a master's in public health and maternal and child health before medical school. That is what brought me to Minnesota and into Teresa's
Yes.
circle. Um, as during my graduate degree, I was able to work as a graduate research assistant through the University of Minnesota Extension. And they had a phenomenal program where I got to get paid to work for a rural nonprofit for a community service. And it was mutually beneficial because I got to flex different skills I was learning in my public health training. And Teresa got decently priced labor.
That's right. That's right.
And during my master's, I had my hands in a lot of different things, specifically focused on rural health, a strong focus on research and health policy. So, my official title for my master's degree is a MPH in maternal and child health with a focus in epidemiology and health services research and policy. And I graduated from that in 2022 and was accepted to attend the University of Wisconsin-Madison on a full ride, which is something I would be happy to talk about with folks because I feel blessed that I have been given the financial support to go into medical school and truly choose what I'm going to go into without as much stress about tuition and loans and repayments. So the rural program at the University of Wisconsin-Madison uh, has us in Madison for the first year and a half, completing all of our didactics, our lectures, our initial exams, and work with cadavers before we do our clinicals statewide. So as of right now, you could have been sent to Green Bay, Marshfield, or La Crosse. And the joke is, well, those aren't rural, those are big urban centers, but we're based there to do work in the surrounding areas. I was fortunate enough to be placed in Green Bay, which is where I'm joining you from today, along with my cat Pekka under the desk. And that's where I've completed all of my clinical rotations. I have a strong interest in tribal health and tribal medicine and have been very fortunate to complete some medical rotations at different tribes in the state. I have also come to realize that I'm going to pursue family medicine with obstetrics so that I can deliver babies, take care of the grandparents, and do everything in between. I like to talk with patients and share that I'm trying to become an old style country doc because I love people and I love talking and I love getting to listen and learn about the best ways I can help take care of you in the context of your family and your community. And so we're in an interesting time because I don't know yet where I'm completing residency. I will have to move to that area and I will start residency in July. So I come to you at a very interesting time, Teresa.
Absolutely. And as folks can see, we're very fortunate to have Delaney with 100 Rural Women because it just such an impact, and you're just so amazing. I just love your approach and being one of those rural people that serves on a hospital board. We just really need good docs in rural areas. So I'm just so excited about where you're headed. Um, the way we usually start out our podcast is asking a question about a lesson you may have learned from your grandmother, maybe another influential older woman in your life. What could you share with us about that?
Oh, I really love this question. Who came to mind when you said that is my grandmother, Joan. So my mama's mama. Um, she was such an important woman in my life. She passed away during my undergrad, and she barely completed high school and did not do any higher education. She got married at 17 and started having kids, as was expected. And she always talked with me about how much she wanted to become a scientist. And it is one of the biggest griefs in my life that I didn't get to share this journey with her. But I pulled today the program from her funeral because she had a poem on the back that I thought would be a lovely way to share something that I sit with. It's a poem by Anonymous, or maybe one of your listeners might actually know who it's from, which they can let us know. But I'll read it. We're building up or tearing down in everything we do. Are you on the construction gang or on the wrecking crew?
Amazing way to think about that whole piece. Where are you at? And we've talked about this a little bit, but your connections to rural and how lucky we are of you from, you know, southern Los Angeles. Tell me a little bit more, just as you've talked about, you're in Green Bay, but you work around. Tell a little bit more about your connection to rural. Has that strengthened doing what you're doing now, or tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. The first time I saw a farm, I was 18,
I love
which
it.
I'm sure for your readers or your listeners is just bananas. Like, that doesn't compute. Where I grew up, you don't make eye contact. You don't acknowledge each other when you walk by. Everything is very efficiency focused, and there's no time to sit, enjoy, and connect. And when I moved to Alabama, it was so starkly different because people say good morning. They look you in the eye, they shake your hand, they ask how you're doing, and they expect an answer. And I fell in love with that. I didn't realize how disconnected I was from the people around me. I think of that moment when you're like coming on an overpass from elevation and you're able to see how many cars might be around you in an area, and that awareness of each of those cars is filled with a different person who's on their own little trek right now going to a different place. And not to be too existential, but I say it in a positive, that we're just one person. And like, even though we're stressed about what's going on in our day, what's coming up for us, in the grand scheme of things, so is everybody else in all these little cars. And
Mm.
when I think about rural, I think about having the opportunity to meet and connect and know people in a much more personal way. And I have just fallen in love with living in small areas.
Hmm.
And I look forward to, especially in the context of becoming the town doctor, of being seen at the grocery store, being known and recognized, having people bring up their bumps and bruises to me to ask, hey, doc, does this look okay? Really getting to know the people I serve, not just in the exam room, but at community events in public spaces. I crave that. I crave connection. There's nothing I enjoy more than a random conversation with a stranger about something funny that happened outside.
And that will happen in the grocery store for sure. And
Mhm.
that will definitely happen. So when you think about, the work you're heading into, the way you look, that holistic approach that really is, and it's
Mhm.
community engagement. Anything else you want to share around you, your work, your community engagement?
What comes to mind is the disconnect I think patients feel from their healthcare teams. I think very often I hear folks share with me that they just don't feel like they get enough time. They don't feel like their doctors listen to them, that they feel like they're on the assembly line and they're getting rushed out. And I absolutely agree that those feelings are real. And I think I want to say that we feel the same way too when it's pressures from a health system or from a practice. It's really hard because we're trained to be compassionate, to listen, and to be there for you. And I think I just want to acknowledge that when we talk about this community piece and understanding and feeling connected, both sides want the same thing. And I think sometimes it's hard to see that because we're feeling the pressure too of getting through our day. And so I think is what I would want to say about community.
This is a question I absolutely love to ask. What are some of the most rewarding things you've gotten to do in your life, in your career to date?
Rewarding. Gosh, I feel like so much of my life has been just a treat. Um, I think of becoming an aunt to two beautiful young girls and getting to be their kind of interesting and weird aunts and, and just encourage them to lean into their silliness and their uniqueness. I think of being selected to give my graduation commencement speech. That was such a huge honor when my classmates voted and chose me, and getting to write about the Minnesota state flower, the pink lady slipper. Um, I think about as a medical student, gaining the trust of the people I'm learning from and patients and being allowed to deliver babies. That has been such a treat as a med student. That is a benefit of training in rural areas that we get to be much closer in on the action. And so, just at the end of last year, I actually delivered my 10th baby as a medical student. And I say that where the physicians are giving me appropriate supervision, they are right there, but they trust me enough and are confident in my skills where I'm truly the first person who gets to touch a fresh human life. And that is a gift I will never have enough words to describe what it means to me.
I can't imagine because that's what I was gonna say. How is that? I mean, I just can't even imagine. I remember having a baby, but it's sort of like, yeah, how incredible. And when we think about how our rural hospitals are struggling to have OB and all those
Mhm.
pieces, and it's so important for pre and post care and being able to deliver those babies. How is that delivering a baby? Oh,
It's simultaneously terrifying and
yeah.
magical.
Oh my gosh.
It's great when everything goes perfect. It's very stressful when it's not. But it's one of the few constants we can rely on in life, right? You're born and then you die. And to get to be there at that moment is just an absolute honor I will never take for
Yeah.
granted. And that's part of why I'm pursuing what I am. So I'm going to do a 3-year family medicine residency
Okay.
where we get trained in the whole extent of care. My favorite phrase about family medicine is the whole little, I don't know if it's a limerick or what the little pithy saying is, but jack of all trades, master of none is often better than master of one. And most people forget that second line, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that is just such the beauty of family medicine, where I can take care of a recently pregnant person and the family, and I can also be responsible for the kid and the grandparents because I get the training and truly taking care of that full community. After residency, I'm also going to pursue an extra year fellowship in surgical obstetrics, just so I really get a high volume in doing C-sections, tubal ligations for sterilization purposes, and emergency hysterectomies. Because the advice I've gotten from my mentors who are doing this type of work out in a community where you might be one of two providers in a large area is you need to be ready for whatever your patients might need. And I want to be able to carry my doctor's bag and do what's needed. Not that I'm trying to do a home C-section. That's not a real thing, but just I want to be fully ready for what my community needs from me.
I know we talked about this a little bit earlier as far did you know what you wanted to do when you grew up? How does that relate to what you're doing today? And did you ever think you'd end up here? That's a long question, but it's amazing what you've accomplished.
Thank you. I am really proud of what I have done for my ancestors and for all the people in my life who have loved and supported me. I wanted to be here, but I actually had no idea if I would be able to make it. I think I see that in the way that I lost the stream along the way and then was able to come back to it. I just reached out to my dad this morning because I know that there's a picture of me from 6th grade dressing up as an obstetrician for career day. I remember I looked up in the dictionary the word for person who delivers babies and specifically wrote it a little name tag with obstetrician Dr. Anderson. Uh, and to get here now, it feels absolutely surreal. Um, I'm technically in 23rd grade for your listeners and about to finish and then
Oh
become
my
a
gosh.
trainee for a few more years. And it's a long journey, but it was worth every single tear and uphill fight and patience and perseverance because I get to I get to love on people. I get to support a community. I get to help create something that's going to outlast me for a long time. Because I think of the people who have helped take care of my own health at different moments in my life and the health issues that my family has faced or other things that it is such a gift to get to give that back.
it's an amazing journey, and I love that. I can just see you with obstetrician bag, like doctor's bag. So you are busy. You are, I know you from, when we worked together, you're involved in so many different things, and medical school is not an easy lift. And I know you're engaged in the community. What do you do for fun? What do you do? What does Delaney do to step back and relax?
Yeah. I am a voracious knitter. I am known in medical school as the girl who knits and lecture. Not that there's really too much of that anymore at this stage, but I love to create. I scrapbook, I collage, I journal. I'm dabbling with writing poetry. I really love to engage with art. I think that it is such a valuable thing for us to do in any part of our life, and to especially give up the freedom of it having to be good. I just have fun slapping paint on something or gluing stuff together or just playing around with different yarns and colors. And even at the end, if it looks terrible, it's still part of that journey and that enjoyment. Even on my busiest, worst, awful days, because a med student can be scheduled up to 80 hours a week. We don't often go up that far, but we can be scheduled that long. I always take 15 minutes each day to do something that is solely selfish, whether that is getting literally a line done knitting on a blanket, whether that is literally reading 4 pages of my book, taking that little bit of time to just be selfish. And I would even argue that selfish isn't the right word. It's sustaining, it's trying to maintain my ability to know that I exist outside of what I am doing is essential to this. And it's something that I'll continue to do in residency and for the rest of my life, because I think we get bogged down and think we have no time, but truly you have 15 minutes to give something back kind to yourself.
That's just a super good example of self-care and a good thing to put into your day and takes you away and helps you recharge.
Mhm.
Um, and I cannot imagine your schedule. What's a typical day like for you right now?
So we are at the end of fourth year, which is known as the promised land for medical students. So I'm truly just getting to do electives that fill my cup, that are helping me become a better provider, and joy, 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 joy. Um, I just finished a rotation in endocrinology, which I was really excited to do because that's a bit of the bread and butter of family medicine, seeing folks with diabetes, with thyroid problems, and also seeing folks for gender care. And that has been such a powerful learning experience, especially in a rural training environment, to really be able to learn what are the things I should have to be able to manage on my own before seeing a specialist, right? Because that's just a huge barrier that if you can only reach me, how can I tee you up, set you up for success without also requiring you to travel 2 hours? So a standard day, I mean, it just depends on whether I'm doing primarily outpatient. So that's more of your like 7 to 4 clinic day, or if I'm an inpatient, usually those can be scheduled anywhere from 6 to 12 hours or longer, depending on what's going on. But they're primarily in your health clinics, in your hospitals, and it's the bit of using the computers to learn about the patient before you go in and see them, put in orders and documentation of what we talked about this day, what we're going to try to do for them to figure out what's going on, or make sure that we're keeping an eye on the progression of a disease. And then it's conversations with the attending physician I'm working with to make sure I have a full understanding of maybe the pathophysiology of, how does this really happen in the body? What is this medication truly doing for this person? Or asking questions about if this patient also was pregnant, for example, how would we modify our treatment? And that's the joy of having community providers, is that they are people who take us on to teach us, even though that they are not really professors. They're not really trained in true academic medicine. They get training and supports to make sure that they are good educators, but they're not quite as enmeshed in academia. And they have a lot of the beautiful tips and tricks of the textbook will say this, but this is what this is going to look like out here because Medicaid, for example, won't pay for this version of the medication. And all of those other little things. So it's a really fun and beautiful day that I get to, usually my spiel is I'll go into the room ahead of a patient if they agree to have a medical student. And I say, "Hi, my name's Delaney. I'm the medical student. I hope they warned you about me. I'm here today to learn from you. I am going to become a rural country doc, and that means I want to see all kinds of problems and all kinds of health issues. And so, what that means for you is that we get to talk first, and you get to tell me your story, tell me what's going on today, tell me why you're here. I might do some initial parts of your exam, and then I'm going to go grab my attending, and I'm going to tell them what I think is going on and what I'd suggest we do. They'll let me know why I'm wrong and why I'm still the student, and then we'll come back together and we'll talk out the plan together and make sure we're all on the same page. Is that okay with you? Just to kind of let people know that this is the time where, I'm learning my spiel for how I talk about different things, about how I'm going to talk about hypertension, how I'm going to talk about having high cholesterol. And I also have the oversight to then go talk with my attending to say, I just talked with our friend Becky. Here's what I'm thinking about for her care. They'll let me know why that's a good or bad option of, well, we can't give this to Becky because Becky also has this. And then we'll go back in together. And the attending always will make sure that they hear it directly from the patient of what's going on. And then we'll get the patient on their way. And so for that patient, their visit might be a little longer, but they're helping to train the next doctors. And I know that's sometimes a hard thing. You absolutely have it within your right to say, no, I don't want to see a medical student today. But it is the dynamic too of we have to be ready and be trained for when your doctor retires. And the only way to do that is through seeing people. But I also always like to say there will be more patients if you just don't feel in the mood to see a med student today. And that's okay for whatever reason that is.
Yeah, I think teaching hospitals, teaching clinics are so important, and just my in and out a little bit with the healthcare system last couple of years. So I was like, well, can we bring a student in? It's like, yes, 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 yes. So just back to you again, what are you reading, watching, listening to? What's your sort of sphere
Yeah.
of
Um, so I am getting back into analog music. I just bought a CD
huh.
player and I
Oh,
have been listening to Fogert's Cave from 1976, the album by Stan Rogers.
yeah.
I am really loving the song 45 Years. I am also reading 7 books at once. I've given myself freedom in the last few years to just read whatever I want, whenever I want,
Yeah.
depending on my mood. But I picked up one to show and share for my queer book club I attend in town. We're reading Live in Concert by Bob the Drag
Oh.
Queen, or it's the full title is Harriet Tubman Live in Concert.
Oh, okay.
And the author is just exploring the life of Harriet Tubman and also um, comparing it against different like rap music. And it's just a fun exploration of history, I think, in a
Oh,
unique way.
interesting.
I just started it, so I don't have a formal review yet, but I'm part of a monthly book club and I enjoy the challenge of trying to get something done. But all of the folks at it are kind and gentle that even when I don't finish it and just show up and yap and cause trouble, it's still welcome.
Absolutely. And that's the way we run our book group too, because you get
Mhm.
busy and don't get it done. And I'm like, I'm going to watch a couple of videos on it because I don't have it. I don't have it done. But I've really been getting into a lot of historic fiction, which
Mm.
has been sort of an interesting thing for me. I'm a fiction reader.
Mhm.
And the book group has made me read nonfiction because we do that every other month, which has really been interesting. Which, of course, all about women. I love to read. I'm trying to be better at listening to audiobooks, but there's something about a book. I think I'm tactile, and I like the book I'm reading right now by Kate Quinn. Is just the pages are so nice, and they've got. I just think reading for me, reading's a good escape for me to just sort of step back a little bit. So I'm gonna check out that book. I'm always looking for good books. What I love about you, Delaney, is you are a positive, forward thinking
Mm.
person. So tell us, how do you stay positive in the world today and all the stuff you've got going on? How do you stay positive and moving forward? And again, I always ask these long questions, but what gives you hope for the future? I mean, that's the thing. It's like, how do you stay positive? How do you?
Mm. I love that question. And I'm glad that that is how I'm perceived. Um, and to be clear, that's how I feel too. I feel like I do have just an inner joy that I'm grateful for. I think it's something I've chosen to cultivate in little moments and in little interactions. Um, I can reflect that at the end of last year, I was actually processing a major loss in my life and some major family issues and health troubles that was devastating. But throughout that time, I chose to lean in on the people who I knew loved me and activities that nourished me. Because I think of the quote my mama loves to say when I'm having a bad day: even in the middle of a storm, the sky is always blue on the other side. And something that my dad and I like to quote back and forth at each other is, the only way out is through.
Mm, mhm.
I sit with a lot the fact that every moment we exist, we have survived something. We have made it through what we thought were the worst possible days of our lives. And there will probably become more future worst possible days, but those days too will go by. And of course, have to highlight a lot of therapy. I am someone who I think I'm going to be in weekly therapy for the rest of my life because I know I'm a better person when I have that space to reflect, separate from family, from friends, from people who have expectations of me beyond truly that health dynamic of how do I process, how do I think through this piece I'm chewing on, whether it's an interpersonal dynamic, whether it's a professional dynamic, whether it's a life dynamic. I am grateful for that space I've created for myself to really process and reflect. I think joy has to be a choice. I think in the world we live in now, it's very easy to get overwhelmed with horror and sadness and deep grief, whether things are happening in your community or across the globe. But I think you have to recognize and know what feeds your soul because that is what's going to help the world. And I say that as somebody who is about to graduate medical school and wants to become a rural country doc and become really annoying once I'm in my community. Be on the local boards, show up to town hall, really bother my mayor, be involved at the county to advocate for health changes, to advocate and advocate and advocate. And I know that's where my power will lie. There are different things in my life and in the world that upset me. But in this moment, I know my job is to get my degree and get to where I will be able to impact so much more beyond right now in my life and in my community. And the only people who can make change are those who come alive. And for me, feeling alive is feeling joy and feeling hope. I think that when we reflect on history, whether in the United States, globally, living in any tumultuous moment must have been horrifying. But those days ended too, and something good came on next. And when I think about hope, I think about the people who have put in time and energy to get to where we are today. When I think about my grandmother that we talked about earlier, that her life expectations was you get married and you have kids, and she barely finished high school. My mama finished high school, was able to do a very few college classes, but never got a degree. Their daughter, their granddaughter, is now about to be 3 degrees deep and a doctor. And that's something that I know my ancestors on that side of my family could have never imagined for themselves or for their future. And I am who I am today because of the people who have loved and supported me on this journey. And I think I have a really deep practice of gratitude for exactly that. Because when I think about how different my life could have been, I feel nothing but joy and gratitude for where I get to be and where I get to go and the things that I get to give out into the world.
I always think what what gives me hope for the future, and you give me hope for the future. And that's the joy of working at 100 Real Women for me. Being here is just, and this is what gives me hope. So thank you for sharing that. And so back to 100 Real Women. When we think about Real Women, what do you think we can all do to better support Real Women?
To me, I feel that the piece most important is connecting truly with others in your life and doing that in a deep and authentic way. I think the only way that we can create the change we want to see in our homes, in our schools, in our communities is to sit down, look someone else in the eye, and have a hard conversation. I often feel that at the end of the day, we all want the same things. We want healthy families. We want good schools. We want good places to work that make us feel respected and valuable, and an income that supports our families being happy and healthy. The question is how we do it and how we do it in a sustainable and meaningful way. And if we don't have those hard conversations with the other people around us, we're not going to be able to cause that change. And when I think about rural women specifically, I think about the power women have as gatherers, as listeners. And I say gatherers in the way that we gather knowledge, we gather people, we gather it together. And I think that giving giving yourself up to being vulnerable, letting yourself tell someone else exactly how you feel in a kind and respectful way, even if it might be unpopular, is the only way that we can really create the communities we all deserve to live in.
Well, I'm with you 100% there. So this is, again, me, two-parter question, but I love to sort of end with this question. What advice would you give your younger self? And what advice do you have for young rural women trying to navigate, well, young women like you and younger trying to navigate life right now?
Mhm. I actually have a post-it note behind the camera that says, "What does little Delaney need?" When I think of little Delaney, I think of a young girl who didn't believe she could do hard things. And it's hard to say what advice I'd give her because she still figured it out.
She
I
did.
I think the biggest thing I would probably say is you don't have to let other people walk all over you to be liked. Because I struggled with that for a lot of years of being liked felt like the most important thing to me before realizing that that gave the power of my value completely to others. And
Hmm.
so that's something that really in the past 2 years, I've come back into myself to say, this is exactly who I am. And it actually doesn't matter if you like me. I'm still going to get my work done regardless.
I
And
love it.
so I think the advice I would give to other young rural women is you are powerful. You yourself have so much power. It vibrates in the air when you feel that thing that gives you purpose and joy. You have to grab onto it and follow it with all your heart, and no matter what, no matter how hard it might feel to leave behind things that no longer serve you, you have
Mm.
to, because the world needs you to lean into that power.
Yes, yes, and yes. I struggled with some very similar things as a kid. So
Mhm.
yeah, it is sort of is to look back. What else? I know we're coming to an end here, but anything else that you wanna share today?
I feel called to share that I'm getting my first tattoo in 2 weeks.
Ah, oh my gosh, what are you getting?
I am getting a very tiny cadeas, which is that medical symbol you think of with the staff, the snakes, and the little
Mm,
wings on my left hip. It's going to be pretty small, about an inch and a half by 2 inches. And it's, again, just going to be on my hip just for me because I always usually take my first step with my left leg. And I want to remind myself of the vow I've made to serve because of the amount of people that have poured into me, like yourself, Teresa, over the years and helped craft me and helped me grow and challenged me. I know that I'm going to be really powerful really soon. And I vow, and I'm saying it here now, to give back to my community with every thought and every breath because of what my community has done for me over time. And I guess I want to share that joy. I'm nervous and excited to get my first tattoo. I'm planning for it to be my first and only. We'll see, but it's going to be it's going to be a beautiful life, Teresa. And I just feel so aware of that on the cusp right now as I feel like I had 3 stages of my life. I had my childhood up to 18 when I left for Alabama. I've had my time in Alabama, Minnesota, and now Wisconsin as a trainee, as a student. And I'm about to start my career and this different season of my life. And I have nothing but joy and gratitude and excitement coming up.
Well, that's wonderful and amazing and everything. And folks can see why I'm just so grateful that we had Delaine with us for the amount of time we did. And I've shared this, Delaine, share it again. Our organization, it just wouldn't be what we are today without your contributions. And you're just amazing, Delaney, and such a thoughtful person. And any residency, anywhere they get an opportunity to be with you will be incredible. And wherever you end up practicing, just will be a very fortunate community. And I'm honored to know you and to have been a little itsy bitsy part of your life for a while and want to stay connected. And I got to tell you, I am so excited to reconnect because we haven't seen each other. We haven't talked. We've done a little email. I'm like, okay, I can't annoy her when she's in medical school. I can't annoy her all the time. But I'm so proud of you and proud of everything you've done and excited about the future and excited about your future and what impact you're going to have in our world. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And everybody, this is Delaney. So I'm glad you get to learn about her too. And that's the beauty of doing this podcast. We get to share these amazing women and their stories. So thanks everybody. Thanks for listening.